Brett Friedlander for the third straight week. So, Brett, in a couple weeks, you might have to come in here and be a co-host with us.
Only if I'm on the payroll.
All right. I'll try to work that out.
Thanks for being with us again. Just talk a little bit about the week that's been. Had your last great game Saturday and the week. Obviously, last night, Duke, North Carolina lived up to all its billing. Just a classic game. I think that you were there, and I guess Duke was able to make it last night. No snow this week.
Yeah, they were able to make that long, arduous 8-mile trip. The thing about it is that Duke has caught a lot of grief for that, but the conditions here really were that bad, and the ACC kind of did Duke a disservice by waiting as long as it did to call the game off. But here's the thing: they were definitely ready for that, and you talk about a week's worth of pent up emotion and enthusiasm and just kind of atmosphere. It was there last night, and at North Carolina, it's kind of frowned upon to rush the court, because they feel like it's beneath them. That's only for schools that aren't where they are, that are beneath them, and but they rushed the court last night, and I think it had more to do with the fact that they've been waiting for a full week to play that game and to have that result than it was that they were surprised over the outcome or any kind of other reason. It was an interesting game because Duke was in complete control with 15 minutes to go. They were up by 11. They were getting any shot that they wanted. They were dominating the boards, and then all of a sudden, it just changed. Carolina went to a 1-2-1 zone, and a 1-2-2 zone, and it really kind of changed things because Duke's guards weren't able to get to the basket, and either score easily at the rim or kick out for open threes. And Duke missed 12 shots in a row. And once the momentum switched, it was pretty much over. And I think a lot of people were shocked at that result. But the Tar Heels have now won 8 in a row and have beaten some pretty good teams here in the last week. And it's pretty safe to say that it appears that they're back.
Yeah, and we had 2 legendary coaches in there, Mike Krzyzewski and a half legend in my mind, Roy Williams. Roy Williams is a great coach. I have a lot of respect for him, but he beat my Illini when I was a kid, so ever since then. But fastest coach to get to 300 wins in the ACC. It took him 386 games. Talk about how animated he was on the sideline last night. He looked like a cartoon character.
He was, and there was this one play, and I can't remember who the foul was called on. It was right in front of him, and I think it was James Michael McAdoo. It was a rebound. He was going for it with Marshall Plumlee, and clearly Plumlee cleared out with his elbow, but they called it on McAdoo, and he went nuts. I thought he was going to get teed up. He took his watch off. I thought he was going to throw his watch. But Roy takes a lot of flack for not being a great X's and O's coach, and it's not his strength. But I'm telling you, last night, the change to the zone, and he does not like to play zone, but that change really affected the course of that game, and I think won it for his team. And the last 2 years, it can be argued that Roy has done possibly his best coaching jobs, because last year, about this time, they were headed for the NIT. And he finally got it through his head that his best lineup involved getting 4 guards in there, playing just fast-paced basketball, giving something up on the board, and just having his best guys on the court. And they ended up turning it around and getting to the NCAA tournament. And well, now this year, after the loss of P.J. Hairston and a 1-4 start in the ACC, it turned things around again. And the big move was putting Leslie McDonald in the starting lineup. Although McDonald really hasn't had a lot of big offensive nights until last night, what that move did was it allowed Marcus Page to go back to point guard position, which, in addition to his scoring, made a lot of other people better, including the young big men, Kennedy Meeks and Bryce Johnson, because Marcus Page is a really good distributor who knows where to get the ball to guys for them to be effective, and it's really helped. And And then the other thing is that Carolina is now playing with a lot of emotion and a lot of urgency. And, you can thank the Clemson Tigers for that because it was the Clemson game. It was Carolina not wanting to be that first team to lose to Clemson in Chapel Hill that kind of got the ball rolling. It kind of instilled that kind of urgency in them, and they haven't lost it since.
Right. You talked about Roy Williams and how he's probably done his best coaching in these last 2 years. I have to agree about last night. We talked earlier about how Duke was definitely the better team coming in. They've got more talent from top to bottom, I think at least. But Roy Williams and the Tar Heels just outcoached, outplayed, outhearted them. And last night, Carolina made a little bit more history when they beat Duke, who came into the preseason ranked number 4. So North Carolina was the first team since polls were released to ever beat the number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4 teams in the preseason poll. On the flip side, they've also lost to teams like Belmont, UAB, Wake, Miami. So what's the ceiling for this team? What kind of future do you see for them in the NCAA tournament?
Well, because of what has happened leading up to now, I would not pencil them into the Final Four. But yet, they're the kind of team that could go to the Final Four. They're also the kind of team that could be ripe for first-round upset. They're the team that's going to break a lot of brackets either way. But I think that the struggles that they had early, I think are now a thing of the past. I think the new lineup, the sense of urgency that they're playing with, has definitely made them a much more consistent team and a team that is now starting to live up to its potential a lot more than it was. Do I think they're a great team? No. Do I think that they're going to be able to beat people just by rolling the ball out if it's North Carolina shirt? No. They've got to play with great intensity, especially on the defensive end, which has been something they've done well lately. And they have to hit some perimeter shots, which they did yesterday. But if they can do that, they can beat anybody, and they've proven they can beat anybody.
Yeah, UNC's been on fire since the loss to Virginia. A 21-point win over Clemson, a 13-point win at Georgia Tech. Really, their closest game was against Pitt, which was a win. Let's talk about the team. What was that?
The Florida State game, too. They were down by 15, and they came back and won that game. But,
Yeah, they show that they can play from behind, too. And last night they were facing a deficit for most of the game. But let's talk about the team that lost last night, Duke. And it doesn't get any easier for them. They have to play Syracuse on Saturday. So what can you tell us about that game? Maybe a quick prediction?
Well, I can tell you that the happiest person in college basketball was the person who bought a Carolina Duke ticket for less than face value on StubHub last Wednesday, thinking that the game was going to be played on Wednesday. And the most disappointed person in college basketball today is the person who went out and spent about $500 on a Syracuse Duke ticket for tomorrow at Cameron, thinking that it was going to be that battle of the Titans for ACC supremacy. Both teams are coming off losses. I think Duke is going to be a team that you have to watch because of the fatigue factor. I think in the second half, while Carolina's zone really did hurt them, I thought that they showed their legs looked like they were starting to go. And, they play again on Saturday, and fatigue could very, very well be a problem. The fact that they're playing at Cameron definitely helps because they will get that lift from the home crowd. Syracuse is a team that really has been asking to get beat for 2 weeks now. I mean, legitimately, Syracuse could be on a 3-game losing streak right now if Tyler Ennis doesn't have his 35-foot prayer answered, at the buzzer against Pitt, and the officials give NC State's T.J. Warren the basket on that breakout play where he was fouled and they ruled it on the floor. We could be talking about Syracuse in a 3-game losing streak heading to Cameron. So it's really going to be an interesting game to watch because I just think it's which team reacts to that loss better because both of them right now have some issues. I'm going to give the edge right now to Duke simply because of Cameron and the fact that Syracuse's inside game is kind of hurt right now. They used to be really, really strong with 3 big guys who could just hit the boards. Well, Coleman's out for the year, and Keita is still down with an ankle injury, and basically it's on Raheem Christmas now. And a lot's going to depend on how they call that game. But if Neil Jefferson and Jabari Parker can stay on the court and not have to go to the bench with foul trouble, I think Duke's going to handle it tomorrow.
Yeah, you talked about Syracuse, who had that. Boston College pulled off the monumental upset this week. And last week you said that Syracuse had all but wrapped up a number 1 seed in the NCAA tournament. And I think that's still true. But what do you think Syracuse has to do to get that number 1 overall seed? Because they have that Duke game. They have to go to Virginia and the ACC tournament left. They could realistically lose 3 more games this year.
Well, if they lose 3 more games, they won't get the number 1 overall seed. I still think it's going to take a total collapse to lose the number 1 seed, especially now that Duke has gone down. See, had Syracuse, if they were to lose 3 games from here on out, like you said, and if Duke would beat them, tomorrow and had beaten Carolina and been that team that could leapfrog over them, I think there'd be more of a chance of them losing that number 1 seed. I think the ACC champ is going to get a number 1 seed, and if unless a total collapse happens, I think that it's going to be Syracuse.
Right, and Brett, just talk before we let you get at it. Talk a little bit about Clemson. Obviously, the 2 hard losses, Notre Dame, and then Virginia was a very tough loss on Saturday. Hung in there and just couldn't make shots at the end. Just talk a little bit about. They rebounded on Tuesday night with a win versus NC State. Where do you see them and about getting in the NCAA tournament, or is it too much of a long shot now?
No, we talked last week about how the most important part of Clemson's season is still coming up. This 5-game stretch leading up to the season finale against Pittsburgh, it's not included in that. But if Clemson can win these 5 games, then I think they've got a really good shot, and they're 1-0 in these 5 games now. And so, it's a matter of winning games now that they're supposed to win. They've faced the toughest part of their schedule. And, I can't remember who they have coming up this week. I'm looking at the schedule right now.
They've got Georgia Tech Saturday and Wake Forest Tuesday. So they should sweep those teams, I believe.
Well, those are 2 games that they've got to win. I mean, if you lose one of those, now all of a sudden you're in trouble. But again, I think if they can take care of business, and even if they lose to Pitt in that last game of the regular season, and then go to Greensboro and win a game there, I think they've got a shot. I honestly believe that NC State and or Clemson is going to get in. I just firmly believe the ACC is going to get 6 bids, and it's going to come down to one of those 2 teams. Because, NC State's got the Tar Heels coming up next week. And it's in Raleigh, and that's a classic game in which, Carolina should win that game, but State always plays its best against Carolina when it's at home in those situations. And so if they win that game, they're right back in the picture as well. So it's going to be fun watching the last couple of weeks of the regular season, see how it shakes out. But I honestly believe that either Clemson or State has got a really good chance of getting in. All they've got to do is basically do what's asked of them. They don't have to do anything extraordinary. Just don't have any really bad losses from here on out.
Yeah, you talk about NC State and the UNC game coming up. Before we let you go, let me get one more question from you. Other than a game involving Duke, Syracuse, and UNC and NC State, I'm not going to let you cheat here. What's the most intriguing matchup in the ACC this week? Kind of a lackluster week compared to what we had this week.
Yeah, I mean, you can't have those crazy big weeks every week because then we'd just be burned out by the time the postseason gets here. I'm looking at the schedule right now, and I honestly think that that the 2 Clemson games are the 2 I'm going to watch because those are must-wins for Clemson. And then the other game that I really am interested in, you basically took NC State out of the equation there, but I'm really watching the NC State Virginia Tech game on Saturday. We've got all our attention on Cameron, we've got all our attention on Carolina and all this kind of stuff here, but that game, NC State can render that UNC game pointless by going to Virginia Tech and losing. That's a game that it's a real trap game. You cannot let your guard down looking ahead to your rival. And so I'm going to be watching that one too. But like you said, just really, it's kind of the lull before that last week of the regular season storm. those are the games I'm watching, and then of course, the real big game that I'm after this weekend that I'm looking forward to is next Saturday when Syracuse goes to JPJ in Charlottesville and plays there, because Virginia is extremely tough at home, and that's a game that if Virginia wins, we're talking all about first number one seeds and Duke and Syracuse. Virginia wins that game, and oh, by the way, they'll be the ACC regular season champ. So
right, really impressive.
We want to keep an eye on.
Right. Well, Brett, thanks again, and have a good weekend, and we'll be enjoying some ACC hoops. But thanks again for joining us, and we really appreciate all the time you've given us over the last 3 weeks. And so thanks again.
Anytime, gentlemen.
All right. Thanks to Brett Friedlander from Wilmington Star News. And